All right. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the NFP Review Board for Thursday, February 29th, 2024. Nolan, will you do roll call?
Sure. Hollander.
Here.
Frederickson.
Here.
Fuller.
Here.
Glasser.
Delighted to be here.
Leto.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Bassett.
Here.
All right, no absent board members, so moving on to item B, adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, just want to point out there's a amendment to the agenda for both the new business cases. Had incorrectly indicated the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation was for granting relief from the NFP woodland and slope preservation. It's actually the slope preservation and slope setback standard for the 4100 project. And for the 1609 project, it's the same, the NFP slope preservation and slope setback standard. I also wanted to state, well, we'll get there.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the formal agenda with the changes?
So moved.
I support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Moving on. Item C, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for January 23rd, 2024 NFP meeting?
So moved.
Support? Do we have support?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Item D, public comments. If there are any comments from the public, please come forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Please note there will be a public comment period for each of the cases tonight under new business. No in-person comments. Do we have any phone-in comments, Judy?
No comments at this time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item E, board member comments. Are there any comments from the board? Hearing no comments. Moving on to item F, new business. Item 1, we have an action item, motion to approve the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the slope preservation and slope setback standards. Approval of the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from slope preservation of the Ankling Road realignment project at 4100 Oakland Drive. Could the applicant please step forward to present on the background and summary of proposed work for 4100 Oakland Drive case?
Hello, my name is Larry Davis. I'm a landscape architect with Hurley and Stewart. Do we have a slideshow queued up? Okay, this is the project that's going on at the old Lakeside home. It's the new clubhouse for the country club. And you can see where the entrance drive is coming out on Oakland Drive, right across from Angling Road. You can go to the next slide, please. Here's an aerial of how it exists currently. In the middle of the screen, you see Oakwood Bible Church and Angling Road coming into Oakland Drive. You can see it comes in at like a 30-degree angle rather than a 90-degree angle. So when the new country club was being designed, It was with the intent that the entry drive would come in across from Angling Drive, and there would be a new signal put there. The city requested that Angling Drive be realigned to be coming in at a 90-degree angle, which is safer for all the traffic. You can see better sight lines and whatnot. So that's what this project is about. This is the segment of Angling Road. You can see in the dark red that shows slopes that exceed the 20% protected requirement for NFP board. It's not quite as easy to see what the slope setbacks are, but those are outside of that pink and kind of an angled pink patch. The area up right at the corner is where the road would be realigned. You can see it's in blue. And the only spot we'd be actually getting into the setbacks and the slope is right at that very corner because that's where we'll be kind of kinking the road to make it 90 degrees. So you can see out of all the slopes, we've really minimized where would be impacting it for the site. Can I see the next slide, please? Here's a drive-by shot. You can see that kind of knob right there at that corner. That's where we'll be most impacting the site because in order to get that 90-degree cut in, we'll have to cut through there and cut into that existing slope. Next slide, please. This is the demo plan from our set of drawings that would show the removals of existing pavement and the maximum footprint of what the construction would require. Next slide, please. And this would be the final layout, how it would end up looking at the end of the project. So you can see that it no longer comes in at quite a strict angle, and it would be right across from the new drive. Next slide, please. This is the grading. You can see right there at the corner where the new grades kind of cut back into that Oakwood Bible Church property a little bit, and that's the area where we're affecting the existing slopes. So we're hoping that NFP board will give us their blessing on going to ZBA and getting that variance for that slope easement.
All right, thank you. Nolan, can you please share the staff report for this project?
Yeah, sure. Just a little extra context about this area. So there's a portion of the property that's also been split and turned into public right-of-way. So there's a section of this area that's actually going to be going before the tree committee on March 5th to take a look at some tree removals and get approvals there. As it was stated, the angle of Angling Road right now makes it difficult to not impact that area to make those intersection improvements and to square up the intersection. There's some pedestrian amenities as well that are going to be added to that area for crossing and whatnot. So the staff recommendation based upon the development of the site would be to provide this variance so that this work could continue. There doesn't seem to be a alternative to squaring that intersection up without impacting these slopes and the slope setbacks.
All right, thank you, Nolan. If there are any comments from the public on this case, please come forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
My name is Lisa. I live across the street, Ridge Drive. I have concerns about this in that I worry about how the how the setup would work as far as protecting the properties across the street and the actual church. How is that going to be shored up? Is that going to be made so that there is no damage downwind from that because we do have wetlands on our side. Also, I hate to see those trees grow, but if you're going to do this road, what about handicap access to this road? At this point, there's no sidewalk. We have a lot of bicyclists that go up that road. I'm not sure, but what I'm looking at is like a little boulevard thing there that I don't think personally is really necessary if you're going to make room for bicyclists. When they come around that corner, they're in danger. Also, my sister's blind. I want her to be able to walk on the sidewalk over there if the bus is going to be there. I don't know what the bus is doing right now. So these are things that are important to me, and we've let the city do some things that might damage our wetlands. So I just want to be careful about what you're approaching. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public comments? Do we have any phone comments? All right, board comments, discussion. Is there any discussion or comments from the board members for the applicant or staff?
I have a question about after construction is over, how that slope will be stabilized.
Lori, could you step forward and just for the people that might be tuning in online?
I had a question as well while you're standing there. Maybe a silly question given the constraints of the site, but just wondering what alternatives, and I know you're working with the city too, you might have considered. And I appreciate the comments from the woman who had the comments about the either swale or boulevard in the center. Knowing that you're in a tight space there and the concerns about bike lanes and sidewalks, it creates an additional expansion of that width, and I was curious what the function of that was.
Yes, sorry, did you hear the beginning? Okay. The city has led that aspect of the design, and we've provided what the city has requested in that area. So I'm not sure what the purpose of the meeting is.
Nolan or Jamie, is that anything that you care to comment on or have?
It would have been a design approved by the traffic engineer who's on the site plan review committee. So that's most likely who they've been working with.
We don't know if it's for drainage or just for safety.
No, I'd have to follow up and understand what that feature is for, but.
Could you, between the two of you, could you talk a little bit more about the sidewalk? And because I know that I've run down that road before, and the sidewalk ends, and then you get forced into a small bike lane. And so I'm kind of curious if this will. It sounds like it could improve some of those features based on your comments, Nolan. But
yeah, the fact that there will be a signal there would make it a safer crossing for people in ADA situations. We can only expand improvements as far as a project will allow. The intent would be in the future, if the Bible Church does any improvements, that they would need to pick up and continue on.
And the sidewalks on the east side of the road would be restored after the road
Yeah.
project as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any plans to install new trees at all? It's not a one-to-one situation, but...
Yeah, we
landscape?
have a meeting with the tree committee upcoming. We're taking out 3 trees, I have 8 trees in the area. 2 of them are dead or in bad condition, so 6 healthy trees. It's yet to be determined whether or not they'll want some understory trees planted in there, or if they'll want plantings in another location. Because it is a full wood lot, there is a question as to whether or not we'd want to plant trees within existing root zones.
Yeah, absolutely. Question known. Is there a reason we are not reviewing landscape?
Yeah, so the tree committee handles the portion, and so I mentioned earlier there's a section of this property that was just recently created, it was basically created into public right-of-way. And so that section, that area that was just referenced will go before tree committee, which is where they'll make their case to remove those trees and get recommendations on planting new trees. This development, though, on the Oakwood Bible Church site will involve some woodland impacts, but they're within they're meeting their preservation requirements based on the size of the parcel in the ordinance, so they're within their right to do that.
Right, thank you.
I think Nolan just basically answered this question, but I just want to clarify the ownership of the parcel, or where is the work all being done in the right-of-way, or is some of it being done on that?
Some of it's done in the right-of-way, and some of it is within a grading easement that it has been obtained from the church.
Okay, thank you.
Any more board comments or discussion?
I guess I just share Member Leto's line of questioning in terms of that. I think they're aesthetically pleasing, those boulevard medians. However, given the relative width of that, and we close the road, that could allow for pedestrian and or bike traffic. What we don't know is how much of that kind of traffic actually ever extends to the west. I don't know if we do a walking and biking study necessarily, but if in fact removing that central medium to allow that is something I think all parties should at least consider.
I agree. Another question, or maybe comment I had to go on with the application is I didn't ask about timing because I know construction schedules are really challenging and can be pending permits and all sorts of things. But with the removal or impact of any oak trees, oak wilt is a big consideration as far as tree diseases that we're dealing with right now, and the kind of textbook time frame to avoid any kind of damage, whether it be pruning, removal, damage to the root systems through grading, is April 15th through July 15th. Climate change, things are getting warmer earlier, staying warmer later, so I would, almost add a month on either side to that, and that's the high-risk period. So best case scenario would be wintertime or, November, October, something like that. So, and I know when we've heard about the adjacent project, historically we've heard from residents concerned about oak wilt as it can transmit to basically the entire stand, so the impacts could go, far beyond the site. So that's something that I know there's some control over it and some things that are out of control, but I would, ask that seek to be done in the dormant season.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, the easement was based on how far they needed to grade back in order to get those slopes that I discussed. It would require removing more trees, which is probably the biggest concern for most of the people involved.
I did want to just make a comment before we continue. I didn't include or talk about this in the staff report, but this is for this case will be a recommendation from the NFP board, which will then move this case to the Zoning Board of Appeals board, which meets on March 14th, which will have its own public comment period for anyone who would like to attend that meeting about this case. So.
All right. Can I entertain a motion to approve the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the NFB woodland and slope preservation standards for the realignment of Angling Road for the NFB project located at 4100 Oakland Drive?
Just real quick, the language for that would not include the woodland preservation standard, but the slope preservation standard and slope setback standard.
Yeah, thank you.
So moved.
All right. This will need a roll call vote. Nolan, can we get a roll call?
Yep. Hollander. Frederickson. Fuller.
Yes.
Glasser.
Yes.
Leto.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Moving on to item 2. It's an action item. Motion to approve a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the NFB slope preservation and slope setback standard. Approval of a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the NFB slope and setback standards for the addition of an upgraded pump house at 1609 Whites Road. Could the applicant please step forward, present on the background and summary of the proposed work at 1609 Whites Road?
You have me turned on? I'm going to try to unplug it. Do it again. There you go. Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is John Fulling. I'm the superintendent at Kalamazoo Country Club. Appreciate you taking the time and letting us do this. Today we're talking about a new pump station, irrigation pump station, and which does fall in a slope area around the lake. This is on 1609 Whites Road. This is on the current club property, and so we just go through here.
I was just going to say I don't know if the cord's a little loose or.
I have a thumb drive, just in case.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Never know. So, got to get up. Try to disconnect. Okay, we can go to the next slide. That'd be great. So we currently have a pump station that's been in place for many, many years. And with the new property and the larger property and the additional space and golf holes, we need to essentially upgrade the pump station. And just kind of showing, I'll show you why here in a second, but we'll be going from an 1,800 gallon a minute pump station to a 3,000 gallon a minute pump station. And new location shown there, which is just essentially to the north of the new property that we've been talking about here for a couple of years, but still on the golf course. Go to the next slide. So this is really replacing our existing pump station. It's in the wrong location for the new course. It's undersized, it's old, it's inefficient, and the current pump station, the old pump station, is located what will be directly in a new golf hole, which doesn't work. And then power also becomes an issue when the old clubhouse eventually goes away. The power has to switch over to the other side, and we lose our power source close to that. New pump station close to the property, right size. We're going to switch to far more efficient vertical turbine pumps, and then this is the only viable location that we could come up with based on the design and the features, and then we're close to the power. Go to the next slide. So this shows reasoning for that location. You can see in the yellow, these are the current golf holes. And in the pink are the future golf holes. So the current pump station, I actually have a picture next. Maybe let's go to the next one. Yeah, we've done that. Oh no, I did that first. Can we go back one? Yeah, so that is located out of golf play. We put it in a spot exactly, we'll get here in a minute, where we minimally disrupt any of the trees, and there will be, which is why we're here, some minor disruption to some of the unnatural slope, but it does fall into the purview of the rules. So, go to the next one. In this area, we've got the two issues. We have the slope. We're far enough away from the lake, but we also have these oak trees there. And in speaking with Noah and over the last couple of months, we give us three options. Do we want, critical root zone, or to maybe upset just a little bit of that slope? And so of these, we believe that the best location is that blue line represents the slope, the base of the slope, including the setback. The square furthest north, extreme north, and north-north. So the one where the yellow line is going into, that's the one we're going to be talking about, and hoping that you approve. But any of those will work for us. Any of those at all. Go to the next slide. This is, again, a little bit closer up view of that. Those lines heading out to the lake, those would indicate where the intake line for the water would be, well underground. Next one. Okay. And then we get into just the details. So total slope on the property, 370,518 square feet. We're talking about a building that's going to be roughly 18 by 30. So disturbing about 1,500 square feet of that slope. The building size itself about 500 square feet. or about 0.5% of the slope. Woodlands, we do have just a little bit of woodland. We're not touching any of that. And tree-wise, just kind of in that area, we have 735 total trees. We'll affect 1 to 3 trees, 0.5%, but our goal is to not cut any trees down. And the only potential disturbance would be a little bit of critical root zone. However, trying to even protect that, I've gotten with and asked and confirmed that our contractor can, in fact, directional bore well under the root zone, the critical root zone. So that pipe, I'll show a side elevation here. Go ahead and to the next one, please. Maybe. So here's the slope. This is just for reference. Right side is all of the 20% slopes in the area, and then the left side is that particular slope outlined, and the pump station would be in that beige circle there, just inside the slope. Next one. There's one. If you wanted to see how much slope we had. Go ahead. Next one, please. Okay, this was, just wanted to make sure we understood critical root zone, how they overlap, where the pump station, the building that's furthest east toward the water, the one that is not in the slope, but in the flat, as you can see, construction there would really impact the critical root zone of those trees, and those some big oak trees, which we don't want to lose and we don't want to disrupt. And then the other two, doesn't matter to us which way the pump station is oriented, but the one on the top there, it affects trees the least. So again, next please. These are the trees in the area. These are all the trees, and they're DBH with the pump station shown, just so you can see it. So those are some pretty large oak trees that we don't want to lose. Next slide. Here's an elevation of how that will look. So the pump station uses a wet well, which is a 72-inch circle straight down, 25 feet, which would be at the pump station in that area of the slope in the building. And then there's a 24-inch pipe that will come into the bottom of that wet well, go through the ground, underground, into the lake far enough out to where there's good water, but that pipe has to be a minimum of 10 feet below the top of the water. So you're starting 10 feet below the top of the water, 200 feet out, and then going down. So by the time you get down here, you're at about 18 feet. So they'll be able to get below those tree roots. The other thing it does from the state side is, so there's no destruction of the shoreline, the land, all that stuff. And which is important. We're dealing with them as well, and they're good with that. So they like directional boring. Next slide, please. This is a view. I went out and staked the area so you could see the slope, see the hill. So those are 2x4s, and that is the height. So standing on the ground, you've got about 5 feet of elevation raised to the bottom of the front 2x4s, and then it's going to be inset into the hill. We'll come around it. It'll be a partially buried building, not very visible. That would be the height of the building, so not obtrusive at all. Wouldn't be able to see it from neighbor's side at all. And the next slide shows side view. That'd be about what it would look like. And then, of course, we would landscape around that and and not only pretty it up, but make sure it's we're not getting any kind of erosion, water, things like that. Is there another one? Is that it? That's it. That's it. So, as I said, we've been working with the state, spoke directly with Andrew LeBaron at the state, so they're good with the pump station because we're getting rid of the other pump station. So the water draw is no problem, and we'll work with the construction side of the state as well. So, doing all that.
All right, thank you. Nolan, can you please share the staff report for this project?
Yeah, so for this project, myself and the zoning administrator, Pete Eldridge, met with the country club leadership to kind of walk through their process for the site selection, potential site selection for the pump house. Due to the size of those trees in that area and them being protected trees as identified in the ordinance, and due to the fact that those 20% sloped areas were most likely regraded when the original golf course was, developed. The stronger case was made for preserving the trees of those size, minimizing any impacts to those, and recommending a dimensional variance to the slope preservation and slope setback standards. So that's where this sort of scenario that was outlined shows, where we originally started the conversation, where we landed in terms of the staff recommendation. It was also discussed that, there'll be, they're working with the state. Most likely the pump house itself will require the site plan review process, so there's a likelihood that this case will come back. But if there's any, changes, it would come back. But so staff recommendation would be to move forward with the recommendation to the ZBA to grant the slope preservation and setback variance request.
All right, thank you. Public comments? If there are any comments from the public on this case, please come forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hi, I'm Ryan Haystack, and I'm here because I live within 300 feet of the property. And really my concern is more about the lake itself. My family and I love swimming in that lake and fishing and kayaking, and if there's any damage to the slope or the trees. And just also hearing the amount of water that's being pumped, going from like 1,800 to 3,000 gallons of water. And there's been any consideration or studies done about the impact to the lake itself. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any phone-in comments?
No phone comments at this time.
Thank you. Board comments, discussion. Any discussion or comments from the board members for the applicant or staff?
I guess my questions or comments were similar to what we heard from the public. I was thinking about the water quality in the lake. Certainly from an erosion standpoint, that's sort of the impact of the actual installation. So that's part of it, and obviously the use of water and how that's going to impact the. So how have those things been taken into consideration? How have they been sort of vetted? And perhaps just first of all describing the efforts that are planned to prevent erosion and runoff during the construction and after. I know you mentioned some plantings around there after, but go into a little bit more detail about that.
Sure, yeah. Right, excellent. questions. So erosion, we'll obviously take every measure that we would normally take. For erosion, we're set to 200 feet back and it's flat all the way, so we wouldn't expect there to be erosion from any of the construction for sure that could ever possibly reach that lake, but we take all the precautions anyway, obviously. From a use standpoint, it is counterintuitive, but so we are going from an 1,800-gallon minute pump station to a 3,000-gallon, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you use tons more water, right? So it's capacity, and property is bigger, and we use it more where we probably are. We don't want to tell you that, but at the same time, it's important to know that we're also, putting in a brand new irrigation system that is very efficient. So it's very large, it's very expensive, there's a lot of heads, there's a lot of control, which again would make it sound like there's more water, but our goal as golf course superintendents, for sure, right? So we're constantly trying to use less water. And in order to use less water, you need more control. So the less water you want to use, the better your irrigation system has to be. Our current irrigation system is 40 years old. The new irrigation system will be absolute precision control by the head, run with fade in a weather station, and it's going to be amazing. We expect to use 15 to 20% less water on the 210 acres than we had with 150 acres. So that's how good having that kind of control is for water efficiency. In terms of quality, the irrigation system wouldn't impact quality at all. It doesn't. It pulls water out. Frankly, it gets better because it filters back to the grass instead of gets back to the lake. But so no, from a quality standpoint, you're not going to get anything into it. We're not running any kind of fertilizers through the system, no fertigation, no chemicals through there, nothing at all. It's water in, water out. That's it. So it always has been. We're very fortunate here in Michigan because we've got good water. If we were in Illinois, sometimes you got to put some stuff in to make the water, a little bit better. But no, so should be no impact at all, quality-wise, water quality, which we test every year and have tested every year for the 30 years I've been there, and it's super clean, really clean. In fact, it's a great lake. So volume-wise, I'm going to say this number. It's going to sound like a lot. We'll use between 30 and 40 million gallons a year. Sounds like a lot, but relative to the lake, we can't make a dent in that lake. So there's more water evaporates off the surface of the lake every day than we could ever use. So it seems like a lot, but it's not. If that makes sense.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you have permitting requirements through Eagle to make this change? Is there some sort of oversight?
Oh yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
So you have a permit with them as well to do this?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we have come in here first. So, but I've already spoken again directly with Andrew LeBaron at the state, and they're good with it. And I said, well, as soon as we get through the city, then we start that process. And I wanted to make sure that we were okay doing a second a draw in a different spot. And so as long as you got one, we're good. So it's water draw is water draw.
Is there, with that permit, do you have a cap on gallon withdrawal currently?
There's no cap.
Okay.
No, there's no cap. We, like all commercial entities that have a water draw from a state body of water, from any body of water, we do report every year to the state, They've got our records for the last 30 years, so we have to let them know exactly how much water we use per month, and we do that. And no, there's not a cap. But again, I mean, just think golf, right? Our goal is not to water, right? Not to overwater. We're trying not to be wrecked. So it's yeah.
Kind of follow up on that, being a hydrogeologist over there, I know some of the water is going to the west side, which looks like it drains more towards Oakland Drive, but it looks like the north side would be in that lake basin and would maybe go to the local water table to recharge if it's not evaporated.
Right. And again, from an NFP perspective, we're looking at whether or not the emplacement of this pump station affects the slope and that sort of thing. Hydrogeologically speaking, from what I know of that area, it's an unconfined aquifer, so whether it's surface water withdrawal or groundwater withdrawal, it's essentially the same system at that point, and the lithology is such that there should be sufficient groundwater flow for recharge. So, yeah.
My other comment was going to be on the placement of the, did you get everything you needed, Tyler? Okay. The placement of the pump house. I realize the aerial map is two-dimensional, and your photos help kind of illustrate the three-dimensional side of things. It looks like the footprint of it is just going to squeak just outside of those critical root zones, or maybe just on the edge, and I think the boring seems like a great way to get underneath that. Is the thought of having it on the sort of the east side, closer to the trees, trying to avoid that 20% slope? I know you're kind of lake buffer, tree, slope, you have these different sort of considerations that you're trying to place it. I'm just wondering if we're sort of considering the relative value of the different variables, and when you mentioned the slope and the trees, the trees are kind of the greater consideration since the slope is a little bit artificial perhaps, but whether moving it to the west would offer any, be fully out of that critical root zone area, or if that would just require more grading and more erosion potential.
I think it would. So it jumps up pretty quick there. Obviously, it's a 20% slope. The further west you go, the deeper it has to be. So the pad, has to be hydraulically. It has to be at a certain level from the top of the water line, and which is about 5 feet. Would like to be that pad that the pump station sits on, about 5 feet. That's about where that is. We can certainly adjust. If we need to go back 10 feet, no problem. We're digging more out. Anywhere in that area is fine. We can work with anything in that area. We can orient it any way. It might become a little bit, with these thicker concrete on the walls, because 3/4 of it's going to be buried. But yeah, really, no difference to us. But yeah, if we want to move it, we want to try to edge it another 5 to 10 feet to get it a little further out of that critical root zone. We can certainly do that.
Yeah, I would just offer just my perspective as one member of the board. The trees being the greater value. If you're really struggling with just almost being outside of it, that the slope is the kind of artificial resource, and you obviously can't replace a 50-inch DVH tree very easily. So I would advocate, if you need wiggle room that way, I would offer that. And then, of course, it's going to sound like a broken record, but since you can disturb those root zones, and you do have oaks in the red oak family there that are prone to getting oak wilt, and obviously they're of great value to you, maintaining the aesthetics of the course too. If that work could be done outside of that oak wilt season from April to July approximately, that would be ideal.
Yeah. Our goal is to do the work late fall this year.
Perfect.
October, November.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly second that. I appreciate the pictures you took on site with the measurements. They really, because I've never had much experience with it on that, so I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the structural board and going out of your way to find a construction method that would be the least invasive. And I appreciate you doing that research before you got to this. Thank you.
Can you clarify what the distance is from the lake of the pump house?
I knew you were going to ask that too. I had, it's around 200 feet.
Okay. So you will need a soil erosion and sediment control permit and need to, comply with all of those regulations. And hopefully that will, at least during the construction phase, that will address any erosion concerns. Then can you talk through, you mentioned you'd be doing landscaping. Will we see that landscape plan then? Again, how will that work?
I'll add that I think that this project will most likely require site plan review. And so there's a chance you will see probably specific plan sets that walk through landscaping, and that's something our zoning administrator would look at. And since this is an NFP property, there are some landscaping requirements outlined in the ordinance as well. So that's something our planner one in the planning department would work with the country club leadership on the site plan review process. But before they can start that process, they have to address going through this variance request first.
Okay. So just to sort of hammer home, my concern with a project on a slope is not so much like a slope is an amazing natural feature in and of itself, but it's relative proximity to the lake and any runoff that might happen or any erosion with additional impervious surface. And so I just really like to make sure that there is consideration of that runoff, some way to handle the runoff on a slope near a lake, hopefully through native plantings, deep-rooted native plantings, so we won't have any additional water delivery or erosion delivery to the lake.
Sure, yeah. A portion of the roof, depending on how far back in we go, will actually be covered. So our current pump station is, you only see the face. The whole thing is literally underground. And so that was our plan for this as well. We can't do the whole thing because there has to be roof access for, get pumps in and out, but with this type of pump station. But yeah, we're planning on coming over. We don't want to see it, all right? And so, yeah, so you'll have turf-filled plants because it's not a used area, so likely like we have over the other one, native tall stuff, and barely could even tell it's there. But no, the goal is to have as little impervious as physically possible, and to see it as little as possible.
One last question about tree disturbance. You said you're going to try not to disturb any trees. But if as you got into construction you realized you were going to have to cut a tree down, they would need to come back here?
Correct. The white oaks is a protected tree, 12 inches of DBH or greater. So echoing the Director Leto and Director Frederickson's points about staying away from the root zones as much as possible and having that pump house located maybe further into the slope to avoid any of that disturbance. And then based on their directional boring, again, this project will probably go before the site plan review committee, and so there would be more documentation on, what the pump house will look like, the landscaping plan, those types of things.
Any more board comments or discussion? All right. Can I entertain a motion to approve the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the NFP slope setback and slope preservation standards for expansion and installation of a new pump house for the NFP project located at 1609 Whites Road.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Nolan, could we get a roll call vote?
Hollander?
Yes.
Frederickson?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Glasser?
Yes.
Leto?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item G, unfinished business, looks like we have none. Is that correct, Nolan? All right, moving on to item H, staff reports and updates. Nolan, any staff reports or updates?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board know I'm going to be tracking NFP projects for this year to hopefully go along with an annual report so you guys understand how many projects have come forward, their zoning type, size, any variance requests, that sort of thing. I'm also looking back in time since NFP was established in 2019 at all the past projects to try and get that together too. Basically, so for staff and the board, we could track over time kind of, as you know, we've had some zoning code updates and things like that, so we can kind of track and see over time how that is playing out and interacting with NFP. So,
Question on that. Could you include also status of the project as far as like under construction or complete and the sense of,
yeah,
how it's
yep.
going out?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of starting with a couple fields of data, and then it'll probably expand as we go. And yeah, the idea is just so it's mostly for me. No, I think it'll be interesting too that we can then present that data at a public hearing at one of your board meetings annually, so that we can kind of showcase, this past year, this is the marks that we hit. So. Or the projects that we encountered. So, yes, that can absolutely be a data piece.
Yeah, I feel like the public would be interested in having comments on our information, providing comments on if they're approved and why, and maybe showing them not just like, everything got through AFP, but the trade-offs that were completed or the nuances of sometimes you see the end results and you don't see what goes into it. But we're trying to balance built environment with, resources.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Item I, communications and announcements. No one or board members, any communications or announcements to mention?
I just wanted to say today is the last day. Tomorrow is the last day for the community feedback engagement survey. So for those who are listening, the flyer was shared again in today's meeting packet. If you know anyone who hasn't taken it, pass it along, but just wanted to throw that out there as a not a last minute announcement, but just an announcement that it closes tomorrow, so anybody who wants to get those comments in, please do.
I just have a question. A while back, we talked about the next phase of NFP might be sort of an education phase where we figure out if there are some materials that we need to develop to provide to developers. I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the shuffle between switching from Jamie to Nolan, because I think that is important. And at a stage now where maybe we have a sense of what help developers might need, and by we I mean staff, because you do a lot of that interaction. And if there are some things that could help, and even just help the general public understand kind of what we're doing and what is working and what's not, or I don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely been some discussion around a possible NFP guide document. And I think if the NFP board members wanted to maybe have a subcommittee of folks to focus on that and report back to the larger board, that's definitely a way to do it. And we can take a look at adding that as a discussion piece for the next meeting, and then work from there. And then that could maybe tie into that annual report at the end of the year, or whatever the board at large would like to, how they'd like to see that kind of implemented.
Any more communications or announcements from anyone? All right, meeting adjourned.